Welcome everybody. Today is see if you can share your microphone or your speaker. Audio is on. See if you can turn down the volume. Do you find it? Yeah, we're close. Yeah. Okay, he was muting his microphone.
Okay, you're good?
I think so, yeah.
The volume thing works as well.
Yeah, there we go. All right, fantastic. Welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. We have a planning zoning general meeting and public hearing. Then we go back into a general meeting. It's about 7:05. We're doing this as a virtual meeting from Town Hall and on Zoom. We have a pretty straightforward agenda tonight. Our big thing we're going to discuss, we have Neil and Malcolm here from Hardesty Hanover to go over the current updates and where we are relative to the town plan of conservation development for 2026. In our packets, we got the update of the townwide survey, which we reviewed about a month ago. Is that about right, Neil?
That's right.
Yeah, it's about a month ago. And then we have an additional document that Hardesty and Hanover provided about all the meetings they've had and where our progress is and whatnot. So with that said, Neil and Malcolm, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Steve. My name is Neil Desai from H&H. As far as we have a couple of things to cover. The things that you just mentioned, Steve. We don't need a lot of time necessarily. I'm going to send a request to share my screen. I don't know who was the administrator.
Brad's probably the administrator. You can hear him, right?
You should have it, Neil.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Okay, right now I'm sharing the our memo to you for today's meeting. And if you've essentially the previous version was a working draft and of the comments, and really nothing's substantively changed since then. We've just cleaned it up, added some language where there was language missing. We responded to one of the comments about at a minimum identifying the number of comments. I think it was Adam that had requested trying to get for each topic a list of positive, how many positive comments, negative comments, but that was even using AI, that was a time-consuming process. And we realized that for most of by and large, I think if the majority of respondents didn't enter in comments under each topic or some of the topics. And as we see in item B here, we just listed which topics received the most and received the least number of comments, but just to provide some information. But in the report, there's a number given. Every comment, the number of comments for each topic is provided so that people just have an idea and can note that. And the one kind of, I guess I would say it's a little bit more substantive addition that we included in the survey is the cross tabulations. We had asked the survey respondents to provide us with information on the years, how long they've lived in Darien, and essentially their age. We asked them, and we appreciate that they provided us with that information because it's just a way for us to gauge whether there's any variation in these two variables in terms of their preferences and choices. And we actually did look at every single topic to see if there's any variation. And let me open up the report here. When we go to that section, what surprised us was that there really wasn't much one would expect maybe the topic of biking would show some variation in terms of their level of satisfaction. But there really isn't maybe there's some things you can dig into this with this chart here I'm showing on the screen of biking, the level of satisfaction by age or decade of birth, but there really wasn't that. And so virtually all the topics, there wasn't really any sort of pattern or trend that we could observe, except for three topics here within the built environment topic. And so this is the new charts that are added that you hadn't seen in the first version. And now it's not a strong trend. It's a slight but observable trend in terms of community character, commercial and mixed use development, and multifamily residential development. And essentially the two trends are the younger the survey respondent, the higher the level of satisfaction for each of these topics. And the newer the resident to Darien, the the higher the level of satisfaction with each of these topics. So I think that was the one that really that's worth kind of putting in here, because the other ones didn't really have this observable trend. And so so that's so the question now for you all is there anything else you'd like to see added, or anything you'd like to see changed with how we've presented this report to you? Because the next question is, we'd like to post this for the public soon, because it's been a while since the survey's been closed. So that's the question for the group right now.
Me personally, I think we're in good shape. I mean, this is a tool to write the next piece of the assignment, which is really the actual town plan. So if this gives you enough data, to be able to move on to the next section, it should be fine. I mean, I don't think we need to beat this into the ground. The community character stuff that you just talked about, and the number of years that people live here or less, I think if you spoke to a realtor, I mean, that's a telltale sign. If someone moved into quote unquote our town,
Mm-hmm.
they should be really happy. They were happy they moved here, right?
That's a very good point. Yep.
The thing that I don't like to see is the people that have been here for 20 or more years, they're not happy. That's a little bit concerning. But if you spent the money to move into town and buy a house or rent an apartment or however you landed up in Darien, I hope you're happy. That would be that makes it makes sense. But that's good. I mean, I don't think you need to do this anymore. I would post it, but I'd open it up to the floor and see anybody else. George, any thoughts on that?
I just would kind of like to understand the process just a little bit more. As to the survey results, this seems like a very comprehensive presentation of the results. So that's all good. There are some things that I'm interested in that are not addressed in the survey. There are some things in the survey that I guess I'd like to highlight somehow. But I assume that's when you get to writing the report. And is that kind of the next thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something in the survey that you want to highlight in the town plan, that can easily be a direction. And if something in the survey that we missed, we still have townwide meetings, we have, workshops and stuff like that. So whatever that is, we can drill down into that topic in a different fashion versus a survey like this.
Yeah, because actually our commission hasn't really had a session to talk about what we think of the future, right? So,
Correct. Yeah.
That's correct. That's absolutely right. We met with just about everybody except P&Z about that topic.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope that'll happen.
Yeah, me too. It sounds like, I mean, you can tell us what everybody else said, and then we're going to tell them what we think, because we were all elected to our positions on townwide elections. And hopefully we're representing our constituents the way they want us to.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments on the survey, Amy or
no, I think we've certainly asked a lot of questions, asked them multiple ways, tapped into the obvious, commissions and committees. except us, which I think, George, that was aptly noted. So I think that's interesting for us to give our 2 cents on it. And just as an aside, I sell a lot of houses and across multiple towns. This year alone, Stamford, New Canaan, Wilton, Weston, Darien, and I've met with appraisers in all of the towns to underwrite all of the various properties. And an appraiser said to me the other day, I don't understand what is it about Darien, why their prices are appreciating so much more than every other town. And I said to her, "Well, are you familiar with the properties and the developments that we're undergoing and the transformation that the town is going through?" And this appraiser didn't actually really understand that. So, I took her through that to enlighten her as to why the needle is moving on Darien so much more than everybody everywhere else. So it doesn't surprise me at all that the people that are newly moved here are happy because they made a conscious choice based on the direction that Darien is taking, that may or may not jive with people that have lived here longer. And we certainly serve everybody. But just the observation that I'll share with the group.
Thanks,
Okay,
Amy.
that's interesting.
Jamie, Jamie, you want to add anything?
No, I'm good with posting it as is. Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, Neil, what's next, sir?
Okay, the next item is what we're just alluding to. We've met with every board and commission committee, you name it, whatever it's called, just about everyone, not every single one, but a lot of them, and we've reported back to you the substance of our discussions. As I mentioned here in the bottom, most were very prepared. Prior to each meeting, while we did send them everyone discussion questions to help the conversations going, a lot of the groups came prepared with outlines or that for us to use during the meeting, or sent us more completed outlines based on the discussion that they had afterwards. So essentially, what you have here is the full set of kind of suggestions that every group has presented to us. And as we say, these are just the summaries of our meetings, or the outlines of the meetings. And so we're just presenting them to you as they were, as is. And this is obviously a really helpful undertaking, and getting to meet all the different committees and understanding their roles. Right, we haven't really had this discussion with the P&Z, and of course we need to have this type of discussion as well with the P&Z. But I think if we don't need to go through this page by page by any means, but because that would take up too much of your time. But I think we do want to. I do want to some. If there's any thoughts you have about this, I don't know the way to. I'm not sure we can get into too much detail, but there should be a way that we can have a discussion about some of the concepts that are suggested here. Whether that's some things we can cover right now, or is that something that we cover in more detail when we meet with you for the same type of meeting that we've had with all of these groups.
Well, let me just chime in 2 seconds. I mean, I think the architecture review board's got some stuff, which is fine. I'm not going to pick on all of them. Add more lighting regulations, that falls under our thing. This historic home income tax credit program, that really isn't us. Again, some of these things that people tell you, and I think we went over this last time, are really either Board of Selectmen issues or a different issue. The one that jumps off the page too was the RTM Public Works Committee want the town gym replace on the connecting bridge to the gymnasium and investigate expansion of options. That's really not us.
Right.
Yeah, we would see that after the fact. Sanitary sewers. that kind of falls under land use because there is a sewer commission. But the other thing that is important, and I think we did address it in the 2016 POCD is, intersection where it talks about pedestrian safety. There was a section in the 2016 about that. Municipal parking, that there's a section in the old town plan about that. So those kind of things, we should probably go over these, maybe at a working meeting and say which ones, fall under our purview and which one falls under another, faction of the town government that has money. We don't have any money.
Right.
At the same time, if I can interject,
Of course.
I expect a lot of these people were not thinking that this is just a zoning plan going forward. This is what they envision of their own particular interests through their boards and commissions and what they would like to plan. Now, is that not appropriate for us or this document, or is it? I don't know.
Me personally, I think it's a mix. Yeah, I think it's
So
Well, right. As I had the similar conversation with Jeremy just earlier, that the scope of the POCD goes beyond kind of things that are just P&Z's purview.
Yeah, I would think so. And so you're probably going to have to incorporate most of what you learn from these other boards and commissions, whether we adopt it or not is what our plan is. This is what they're offering up, I suppose.
Right, but like one of the sentences, when people come up with an application and it's a townwide thing, it's like invest in or buy excess land or buy excess peoples or invest in your facilities and renovate, schools and whatnot. So, I mean, I'm kind of sort of correcting myself, but where it says, fix the town gym, town gym need replace, repair the bridge. If something like that is in a broader sentence that says, invest more money back into schools, invest more money down into facilities, and then Public Works comes to us 4 years from now and goes, we want to spend another, X dollars to fix this thing. And it says it right here in the town plan of conservation development. The guy's spot on, right?
Yeah, well, we don't need to get into what it costs, but
Right.
project like
Right.
like the Hanson Road project, they had to come to us because of the water implications. So anyway,
Right.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
we've got to incorporate that.
That makes sense.
That being
So-
said, like you were saying, Steve, some of the things that came up during these meetings are appropriate for the POCD, and some of them are beyond the scope or the focus of the POCD. And so, we wanted to present everything that came up in those meetings as unedited as possible for your consideration. And, I think that right now Neil and I had a conversation with Fred and Jeremy about timelines. And, you have the survey results, you have the meeting summaries. We're going to have a public workshop July 9th. And then because there's no meeting in August and we're expecting your first meeting back in September to be a busy one. That second meeting in September is when you will see us next. And hopefully by that point, we will have all had an opportunity to digest, these two documents and also anything that comes up at the workshop. And we can start honing in on what we want to see featured, what you want to see featured in this plan, and start bringing you some drafts.
How are we
So
determining the workshop questions at this point, since we have kind of this broad base of information?
That's what we have to do. We're going to be doing between now and well, certainly not now and July 1. We need to plan out the workshop, and that's what I want to figure out is there's many different things we can do, both through having boards and exhibits as well as the workshop discussions. If there's a specific topic that you think or topics that you think would be really important, do let us know now. But we have to start designing the workshop very soon, so we know the answer to that question, and we can share with you, in advance of that, in advance of July 9th, what the whole plan is for the workshop, and how are we going to be uh, uh, getting input from people, and what topics, that sort of thing.
Well, why don't you do this? And George is going to comment in a second, but why don't you do this? Why don't you and Jeremy and Fred come up with a outline, and then the P&Z commissioners like Jamie and whatnot, she can send her ideas of what things should be covered to Fred and Jeremy, and if it's already on your list, then you already covered it, and we're good.
Yeah.
Right. But George wanted to
Just for clarity, Malcolm, you made the comment that some of this may not be appropriate for the plan. So given our conversation about how, it seemed like everybody got their opportunity to say whatever they're interested in for their various boards and commissions, what are you thinking would not be appropriate for this plan?
Well, actually, we sort of contradicted ourselves a little bit, Malcolm and I. I said that the POCD scope is broader than just the P&Z topics. And I think Malcolm said sort of that. I don't know if you said the
I think
wrong
what I
word,
was saying was just that not everything that came up in our meetings and not everything that was summarized in the meeting summaries can make it into the plan, only because of what a wide breadth that is. And also ultimately it's your plan, you're choosing the direction of this. Not everything that comes up in that needs to be in the plan. I don't have an example off the top of my head, but I think that as we work through the meeting summaries and through those discussions, there will be things that stick out as elements to focus on, and there will be things that stick out as something that won't make that cut necessarily,
Right.
whether because of the scope or whether because of the quantity of what's making its way into the POCD.
I think one topic is essentially a lot of the comments about schools, about the public schools. The POCD does not have purview over the schools. There may be some exceptions, but generally speaking, those are the types of things we heard about the school. The ideas people had in the survey are not things that we can really bring to the POCD.
Yeah, good. That makes sense. Any board event stuff clearly is out of our realm. That makes sense.
The only they would be is to encourage renovations or something like that.
Right. More of a capital thing than Neil and I talked about school policies. Should they offer certain courses is not really P&Z's jurisdiction.
Right.
But you're right, Steve, maintaining the fields and making the fields more multi-purpose or something like that might be. So sometimes the recommendations you see in this document might be too detailed, and it could be the commission looks at them at a more higher level, less detailed. Some of the issues that Neil and Malcolm spoke to the boards about was very informational, so they can understand the perspectives of what the boards are doing. Like, for example, the Commission on Aging, one of their main focuses these days is on loneliness, which is a more recent topic. Not something for the town plan, but to understand the background of some of the perspectives of what the commission's working on.
That makes sense. If I can just suggest that I think that's right. But communication is going to be important to all of these groups, because every one of them, every member of the Commission on Aging or Planning, Zoning, and Housing, they're going to look for what they talked about, what they presented to you. So they're going to need to understand why it isn't in there if it's not in there.
Yeah,
That's spot on.
and when you look at that meeting, there's a lot of elements of what we discussed with the Commission on Aging that won't make it into the plan, but there are elements of it that are related that are absolutely in the purview of the POCD, specifically walkability, multi-use public spaces that relates to the loneliness challenge in the community. Right.
Active open spaces, the senior center, things like that. Yep.
I mean, like one example, we don't want to get to the schools, but I kind of want to move on. In the 2006 Plan of Conservation Development, there was nothing in there about lights at the high school. It was specifically put in 2016, and miraculously it got done after it was in the town plan. It's the same thing with like the, athletic fields to make them better. I mean, they cited the 2016 plan when they did all the AstroTurf fields. And the reason why I mean, I moved to town in 1999, and when the POCD, when that idea came up, it wasn't in the plan, so it couldn't get approved. But those are things that do matter. That's why
Yep, I'm here.
Yes, we just booked the Mather Center earlier today.
Okay, so the master, what I was starting to say, I don't know if you're going to do one of those QR code things again, Neil, and you can gauge attendance by people that may say that they're coming. If you get an overwhelming, hey, I want to be at the meeting type thing, you may have to switch it to a bigger venue.
Right. In fact, I did put it. The main interface will be a link from the site to Eventbrite, and so it'll be an event. People, I'll recommend that they RSVP. I would say they have to. I don't want them to, and that way we'll get some numbers. And if that number is starting to get above like 100, what would see the threshold would be probably.
You can get out, look at the.
I think it's like 120 down there.
He said 120.
Okay.
That's a fire code issue too. It's going to be like
right.
Capacity the room or something.
So I'll track that. So, yeah, I definitely would like to have an RSVP, a quick, easy RSVP for people.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask people for their like email address or cell phone number to get an RSVP.
Okay, so just a simple
Will
yes
you be
or
attending, yes or no?
their name. Okay.
Yeah, so it can be anonymous.
I'll
Trust
see if
me,
I
I
can do
don't.
that.
I try to not give out my cell phone number and email as much as possible.
Yeah, I definitely don't need cell phone number at all. So, but okay, thanks.
So then, my point was just because now I guess we're going to talk faster. Do the agenda or the topics with what you want to do with Jeremy and Freddie, and it could overlap with some of the stuff that was in the survey, or you can drill down deeper. And if there's anything like George was saying earlier that we missed on the survey, or Jamie was saying that we missed on the survey, you can add that in. But obviously, you're gonna. It's the meeting. You got to believe that meeting's only going to want to be an hour, and people are going to want to.
A 2-hour window, meaning, yeah, the meeting, people come in late and then people want to leave. So we'll just advertise a 2-hour window. And
Because
within that.
Comment, 3 minutes.
Yeah. But what people do, and I remember in advance in the Great Island meetings, they have all those boards, all over the lobby. And people, you may start it at 6:30 or 7 or whatever time. And people come in early, stare at the boards, and then make the meeting, the meat of the meeting, a half an hour later or something like that. Or the presentation, where you go up front and you welcome everybody, that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, we gotta kind of divide up the time that way, because we do want to have exhibits that people, similar to Great Island, that people are looking at and interacting with. So in the beginning, and so yeah, we have to kind of choreograph all that in terms of the timings. But I think we could do a 7 to 9, but we could also say doors open at 6:30 or something like that, to allow for that. So.
Yep. Okay, so you guys come up with the plan, and then send it out to us. If there's anything we think we're missing,
okay,
that'd be great.
All right, thank you. All right.
Anything else?
That's all for us. Covered everything we needed. So thank you.
Fantastic. Fred or Jeremy, anything else we need from Fred, from Neil or Malcolm at this point?
Nope, it's exactly what we spoke about earlier today. Right on the money.
Okay. Amy and Jamie, anything else you want to add or ask?
Nope.
All righty. Thank you, Neil.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Malcolm, wherever you are.
Yeah, I don't think he was able to get back on, but
Oh, no.
He's got to put more money in the meter.
Right.
All righty, we're going to suspend the general meeting for a little bit and go into a public hearing. So this is a public hearing portion. Continuation of public hearing regarding landfilling and regrading application number 587, also known as PL 25-65. Sabito, Iavacone, and Jessica. Wow, that's a tough one. Bartolini at 3 Dogwood Lane North. I just skipped that, didn't I? Proposal to construct a new addition to an existing single-family residence, construction of a retaining wall, and perform related site development activities, including regrading of the property to accommodate the improvements and installation of stormwater management. The 1.1 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the southern terminus of Dogwood Lane North, approximately 170 feet west of its intersection with Arrowhead Way, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 64 as lot 2027 in the R1 zone. The public meeting opened on June 3rd and has been extended to today. Board, gentlemen, Fred, what do we got?
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. The commission opened this matter, opened the public hearing on June 3rd and continued it to this evening to allow the applicant to respond to comments that were submitted on the application by the commission's peer review engineer, Joe Canis of Ty and Bond. Over the past week or so, the applicant and the town, including Joe, have gone back and forth with the applicant on a number of additional iterations to the plans. Mr. Canis issued his final memo of June 10th, which has been uploaded to the application, noting that all of his outstanding comments have been addressed as part of the application. He does have 3 minor remaining suggested conditions of approval. However, all of the outstanding comments that he previously raised have been addressed by the applicant. So I think it would be appropriate to turn this over to Joe to give the commission a brief overview on what was changed in the plans and answer any additional questions the commission may have at this point.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't see the tape. I was not at the last meeting. I didn't see the tape of that meeting. So I don't know how far you got in the process.
We didn't go anywhere into a presentation about the nature of the drainage and the rest of that. We heard from a neighbor, but we didn't get any, we didn't review the plans or anything.
Okay,
right?
So
I think that's right. I'll
Yeah,
take the blame.
that's
for that. I
correct.
said that
Yeah, that's correct.
the information wasn't complete, so I encourage that we not spend the time. So
okay,
is the owner not here?
she's right there, Jessica.
Yep, Jessica's
okay.
here. I think Wayne Devanzo, her engineer, was online, but he dropped off. So Joe Canis is familiar with the application, and of course, Jessica is being the property owner.
Okay, so we need someone to present it to us before Joe Canis comments, right?
I can do that.
There you go, Jessica. You're on. It's your house.
Yes. Hi, Jessica Boccigalupi, said applicant. My husband, Sabino Iacobona, and I own 3 Dogwood Lane. Thank you for adding us to this schedule. Obviously, I'll just reiterate briefly, the permit is to excavate and regrade in preparation for a potential addition. After considerable collaboration and multiple rounds of revisions, we believe we have now met all of the town's requirements. The initial request for this permit was to explore the extent of the ledge on the property to be able to finalize the foundation design of the intended addition, obviously to put it through to a building permit. The original design that came through the Coltech retention system intended to manage the runoff generated by the proposed addition's roof area was never in question and remains sufficient. In addition, the site now incorporates extensive yard engineering that addresses runoff from approximately 2 acres of off-site upslope watershed. far exceeding what we had initially anticipated, but nonetheless have addressed, or so we believe, according to Joe's responses. I do have some questions regarding the possible conditions of approval remaining, but I don't know if there are any questions about the sort of the initial application, or if we really just want to focus on the engineering piece.
We want to focus on everything, to be honest with you, but
Okay.
is Fred, I was told that there's another set of plans that were uploaded today. So they material different from what we have in the file now.
Yeah, so can you all see the screen that I'm sharing currently?
We sure can.
Okay, this is the most recent plan that's been submitted, and this has been uploaded to the application as well.
Okay.
And that was yesterday, I believe.
That's right. That's correct.
Okay. So can someone walk us through the changes from last week or June 6th to today? What changed?
I can. I'm sure that Joe's better at it, but I can do that.
Usually applicant presents it and
Yeah,
then
good.
Joe
Perfect.
comments.
Perfect. Happy to do that. So initially we had a retaining wall at the northwest portion, as well as the northeast portion. We removed that retaining wall, which removed the need for any sort of fall hazard or additional footing drains. As I mentioned, the Coltex system, which is at the northeasterly corner, has been sized sufficiently for the proposed addition runoff, the new impermeable area created by the roof, and that has never been required to be revised in any way. I think the most significant change is regarding the water that is, we are a mid-slope property, and we have obviously a significant amount of water that passes from Settlers Trail through our property. And Ty and Bonjo's comments were fundamentally to mitigate the amount of water hitting the back of the westerly portion of the foundation, the left green box there on the side. And also to divert it away from, there's a central sort of breeze, the courtyard between the two buildings, to make sure that that there was no pulling in that area. So we added curtain drains, extensive curtain drain system, several yard drains, and we are piping that underneath the breezeway addition. There was some concern about whether or not what the best practices there were, but given the architectural nature of the property, and wanting to maintain the Edward Durrellstone original house and sort of separate the addition from that, Joe was in agreement that as long as we protect those pipes under the cement slab breezeway, and as well as went from a 6-inch pipe to a 10-inch, given Joe took another look at the amount of water coming from 16 all the way through to, I think it is 17 Settlers Trail, and took that amount of water from 7,000 square feet of water to nearly 1.8 acres worth of water. So just to adequately size that pipe underneath. It then comes out to originally a riprap, but we addressed a concern 10C, changing that into a level spreader, which is indicated on this plan here, just to adequately disperse that once it makes it through to the other side.
And where's that on the plan, Fred? You have the cursor, right, Fred?
Yeah.
Because the two buildings where that right there, that's where the breezeway is.
So the breezeway is in this location here.
Okay.
And then this is the addition to the house.
Yep.
Okay.
And I can share my screen, Fred, if you prefer. I have that same drawing.
Yeah, why don't you do that, Jessica?
Sure. Let me you'll be mortified by how many tabs I have open at any given point. Just resize that quickly.
Sounds like you know what you're doing.
Let's see here. I need to request permission. What's that? Here it is.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Fred,
Yes.
was it Tokenique Association giving the heads up on this one?
This was not referred out to the Tokenique Association, no.
When I submitted my paperwork to you, I submitted it as well to the Tokenique board. It is telling me that the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, are you able to, you're not able to request share?
Let me try again. No, when I request, it just says host has disabled participant screen sharing.
That's the reason why I don't like it.
Hold on.
It's just too
Yeah,
hard.
no, it takes a lot of time to make it work.
Yeah, see, this part doesn't. This addition here is dead.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not possible for me to share it, Fred, if you want to share yours again, I can just sort of attempt to talk through it directionally.
Yeah, I'm not
Let's do
seeing
that.
the setting to,
Why don't you do that, Fred? Why don't you put the plan back up so we can just understand it? And then, I mean, I don't mean to be tough, but we got to get Joe Canis to speak before we have to put more money in the meter. And that's in 10 minutes.
So while he's pulling that up, I'll just address the, when it comes back up, you'll see the ledge pieces, and there's a ledge off the side of the driveway. The spreader, the pipe outlet and the spreader is there to the southeast of the Coltech system.
Yep.
So there's obviously a very large piece of ledge in the back of the property. There's a small ledge underneath the proposed addition, and then there's the front ledge with the dark black outline. Just between sort of the rectangular box that holds the Coltech system up at the upper corner by the driveway. If you just walk back, a quarter of an inch, that is where the change from the riprap to the level spreader has been made. The pipe for that, if you walk back, there's a straight line. It goes under that breezeway. It's about a 15-foot concrete wide slab that connects the house to the new addition. And it funnels from there the yard drains, the courtyard drain, and the curtain drains that run along the perimeter, the back perimeter of the green box on the left side of the screen.
So the water goes from left to right?
So the water if you're looking at this map, essentially, yes, left to right.
Okay.
It comes down the hill, is sort of slowed and funneled, is my understanding, and then ends up dispersed with the level spreader sort of between the house and that ledge piece up at on the right side. I understand that yes.
Because Jessica, one of our tasks is to make sure that this thing is, one, doesn't flood anybody else, and two, is kind of sort of FEMA compliant. Because if it doesn't work, and that's why we have Joe Caddis, then it becomes a FEMA issue, because we get audited by FEMA every year.
Right.
And we don't want you flooding out your own house.
Of course.
And we did hear from a neighbor at the meeting.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I understand that obviously much better now, given, my anticipation was, of course, with the addition of the roof area, we had to manage that with the Coltech system, but did not anticipate the 2 acres uphill that we would need to be managing that runoff. I took a look at Settlers Trail 16, which a portion of their water does run onto my property as well, and was curious to know what sort of, temporary mitigation they have, and permanent post, if they are controlling any of the water that's running off of their property, or how that is sort of managed with the rest of the site improvements in town. It's obviously quite a bit of water, but I think that Joe, on the second round or third round of reviews, we had a 6-inch PVC pipe, and then taking another look at those calculations, that went up to a 10-inch PVC. And only, I assume if Joe needed it to be bigger or different that it would be, but it has changed substantially with closer looks at the amount of water that passes from Settlers Trail through our property.
Right. I mean, 10 inches, to be honest with you, is one of the biggest I've ever heard.
It's huge.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's huge and it's deep, which I think is.
And then the level spreader at the end of the line,
Mhm.
that's in the neighborhood of where the Cultex are, right?
It is back down. Looking at the map, it is down from the Coltex, which is technically south.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? Because I want to get Joe Canis in here.
Sure. No, just that one of the outstanding items of conditions for potential approval was a level spreader. It is on there. If there's something else from 10C that he needs to see from us, I would like some clarification from Ty and Bond on that. The other item was number 11, the geotextile is not located in the detail, which is fine. I will have Fairfield Engineering update that. That's not a problem. And then just to better understand the sort of temporary hydraulic facility criteria, number 5, that is still a condition of approval. What sort of standards we will be evaluated on during an inspection for that in terms of volume or temporary grading, and just to understand for a project like 16 Settlers Trail with a pool and expanded yard, 1,800 square feet of addition and more driveway, what their temporary mitigation measures are, given now that I'm aware that their water comes onto my property, and how is that substantially different or the same from what I'm being required to manage. But otherwise, everything else has been addressed to Joe's liking.
Okay. Hey, Joe, you want to take it away before we run out of time?
Absolutely. Okay. For the record, Joseph Canis, licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, with Ty and Bond, we're retained by the commission to review the application. And the application's come a long way since our meeting last week. And I issued a memo today that my outstanding comments were addressed, and there are just a couple minor comments that could be incorporated as a condition of approval. First of all, the level spreader. I did in my memo, I did not pick that up. That had been changed. That has been changed. So that's one less condition of approval. So the other comment with respect to the temporary hydraulic facility really refers to that Coltex system. And you'll see on the drawing in front of you at that Coltex system, there is a anti-tracking pad, right? So that's where the construction entrance is going to be, because that's really the only place on the property that it can go to access that addition. Initially, Fairfield County Engineering had it shown climbing the outcropping there on the east side, and obviously, we didn't think that would work. So this is kind of like really the only area that it can go. But my concern was you have construction traffic driving over these Cultec units. So my condition of approval comment is basically said that it's okay if you install the eastern 4 of the 8 Coltex first, right? At least you have something to manage the water from your addition. And that necessarily doesn't need to, be a full 50-year design, right? Yeah, there's a temporary hydraulic criteria because it's only a temporary short-term condition that'll be there for, a couple months. And then, on their way out, once the addition is complete, they can then install the other 4 Coltec units, right? So that, when there's less traffic driving on top of those units, those can be addressed, right? Because what we don't want to happen is, those units either getting damaged from the traffic or, the soils beneath getting compressed.
Those are plastic, right, Joe?
Those are plastic. That's correct.
Yeah.
And what they do is they get their strength from the amount of soil cover over them.
Right.
Right. Yes. So that's what I was thinking there. So that could be a 2-stage installation is really what I was driving at there. And then the other comments I had were mostly advisory. Like, for example, with the runoff from the slope above, my concern was, as you get the sheet flow from that slope coming down, it would pile up in that alcove area, between the original house and the new addition. So I just wanted to be sure that there wouldn't be a ponding problem on that, in that particular area. So what Fairfield County's solution was to install a curtain drain. They did have a pipe going across there initially, but it was a 6-inch pipe, which didn't seem adequate for the 2 acres that's contributing toward it. And it wasn't, there were calculations done and a 10-inch would be sufficient. And the reason why it's a 10-inch is, and not like a 12 or something larger, is because there's a pretty good slope on that pipe as it leaves and heads down towards that level spreader. So that helps with the capacity. And the reason why I asked for a level spreader instead of a riprap apron, which was originally shown, was basically to disperse that flow across the slope, right? Because the location was kind of pinched between the Coltex, originally pinched between those Coltex and the rock outcropping, which I thought would, focus and concentrate that runoff, leading to erosion on the slope there. So that's why I requested the level spreader, and that was done. And I think the other potential condition of approval related to this, and it doesn't have to be done, it's not a requirement, it's just something for the applicant to consider. Because that pipe is going beneath the house, it might not be a bad idea to sleeve that pipe in a larger pipe. That way, if something does happen to that pipe, you can dig down and just pull the pipe out instead of trying to have, fix it or reroute it around the house. Just
You want to put a 10-inch inside a 12-inch.
Right. It would have to probably be bigger, like a 16-inch ductile iron pipe. It's a fairly short run, 20 feet. You're digging the hole anyway. Again, not required, just kind of, just a
No, it
suggestion.
makes sense.
Yeah.
In all caution. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it helps you out, Jessica.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I live on a slab now and I live in fear of things going wrong. So
Right.
I prefer to do that.
Yeah. And then I had some comments, right? Because this, will potentially have a sump pump, or actually will, right? Just making sure that there was a separate Coltech chamber system for that. And my concern was, and you can see that chamber system's located north of that proposed retaining wall, which is actually fairly short. It's only like 2 feet high. Was the proximity of that system to the wall drain. And that's been resolved with impermeable fabric around a part of the wall drain to separate the Coltech discharge and the wall drain discharge, right? Because what I didn't want to happen was that Coltech system for the sump pumps feeding into the wall drain and then having that drain down the slope, right? We want to keep that in the ground.
This
Where's
is point
the,
11. Joe, sorry.
That was 11. That's
Yeah,
correct.
okay, great. Thank you.
And then I had another comment again, with respect to the propane tank. You can see that between the green area there and the wall, there's a propane tank in the middle of that area. I thought maybe it might be, beneficial to move it to one corner or the other, because typically an underground propane tank has a fill on it, a fill port that's about 12 inches above grade. It just seems like that'll be a nice space, and kind of be ashamed to have a fill port sticking up in the middle of it. Again, not it doesn't impact stormwater, but just something I picked up on the plans during my review.
They'll put a plastic rock up over it, like my neighbor. Do we have a backup generator for the sump pump?
Currently, no.
Do we need that? Because if you lose power, your sump pump's not going to work.
I think that the understanding from the secondary set of soil tests is that the likelihood is that the basement will be in ledge and not groundwater, but obviously that's up to the professionals to decide if we need a.
But what's the sump pump serving?
The sump pump is, I think, with the thought that it was going to be in groundwater and recirculating the footing drain.
Right. Yeah. And I think it was more of a belt and suspenders type of approach, just in case, because sometimes you get water that does travel along the ledge. This is kind of a belt and suspenders approach, just in the event that there is, water that comes in, it could be evacuated.
That's tiny. I mean, my house has got a tiny sump pump, but and I don't have a backup generator. I get one of those portable jobs. I those are just things that we think about. It's not required.
Mhm.
It's not required, but that's.
But
what-
it's always a good idea because I had a sump pump go, and I got 18 inches of water in my basement. Had to get a new furnace.
Yeah, I think too, once we excavate and we do see if there is groundwater, obviously that'll make certain decisions more important and for
We
safety.
have no lot coverage issues on this thing, right?
No, we're within all, I mean, I don't know if someone else is supposed to order that, but no, we currently, if we go forward with the proposed addition, we will be at 12.4% coverage, and we have max 20% in this
That's
R1.
fine. The reason why I asked that question is sometimes you have to do a concrete pad that adds to impervious surface.
Okay, no, we've got room for that.
You got 16% to go.
Yeah.
Okay, let me open it up to the other commissioners if they have any question. George, you're gonna have you go last, okay?
Okay,
Before these guys.
fair enough.
go
That's
up.
what I get for sitting here with you. All right, fine.
Amy or Jamie, any questions on this one so far?
No, I just saw the comment from the health department about the review of the septic system. That was the only other outstanding.
Yes, they want, obviously for good reason, want the everything on one map. So once we finalize this map, I will have the septic systems placed on this for their final decision and review.
So that could be a condition of approval.
Okay, thank you.
Amy, but Barsanti, anything?
I think all my questions have been answered.
Okay. George Riley.
Just quickly, I'm just a little confused about the what we have seen in the past as the red proposed building and now the green roof area. Is the breezeway going to have a roof on it or no?
It does. It has a flat roof.
Oh, it does. A flat roof. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's part of the drainage is coming off of that roof then.
System. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I believe that's an existing patio right now, so it is impervious now.
True.
Okay. And just the sides of it, are they raised up a little from the level of the grass or whatever other surface is there, or so that it would stop the flow of water along there, or is it low enough?
That's what we're digging a tunnel underneath.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
Right
the
there.
12-inch pipe is underneath that brick patio, right?
But
Because the brick patio is turning into a
No,
breezeway.
not the brick. Yeah. The
But it's this
breezeway-
thing here.
Yes.
This on the plan it says brick patio
Oh, okay.
Right.
with pergola.
So there's two. Okay. All right. You've got it covered. That I won't worry. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else outstanding in this one, Fred? I mean, we got 5 minutes left before we lose time, and if we're going to close this hearing tonight, I want to make sure we close it before we get cut off.
I think we do have at least one of the neighbors here who may wish to comment.
I'm sorry, I did not open it to the public. Yes. Anyone in the general public would speak to this application? We have time remaining 6 minutes and 35 seconds. And if anyone does want to speak, please do not feel rushed. Anybody want to speak to this application? You have to either raise your hand or just start talking or unmute your camera. Do you think somebody's here, Jeremy?
Yes, Miss Olson lives downhill. She lives on the eastern side of the property. And so I believe she was also at the last hearing and was concerned about the water that flows downhill. As it was mentioned, the water flows, in this case, left to right or west to east. And Joe has worked with Wayne Devanzo of Fairfield County Engineering to not make things worse. A lot of the neighbors mentioned that they had concern that water continues to flow downhill, and they want to make sure that this application doesn't make it worse. Ms. Olson?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. You have the floor,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yes, that's correct. And we feel that, we really appreciate you having it looked at. And, we just hope for the best. And, we thank you so much for having it peer reviewed and we're all good.
Thank you. And Joe Canis, if you could just assure Mrs. Olson that the Caltech system is big enough, that would be great.
Yes, it does meet the town's design regulations for a 50-year storm event. So yeah, so it is compliant. Yeah, so that that's one of the things that we looked at, and the level spreader and things like that all came about because we were, had some concerns about how that, not just the volume, but how that water also gets discharged, right? We didn't want us to, have a concentrated discharge, kind of like a mini river that flows onto your property. So that's why we had the level spreader, which actually spreads that flow out so it flows slower and less deep. So it essentially mimics the existing drainage pattern that's there now.
So yeah, that is my only question. Am I expecting the runoff that I currently have? Will it be the same?
It'd actually be a tiny bit less based on the computations. Because when we do these, we do have the applicants, take a look at, like, for example, this site's a perfect example. You'll see a red line that it's a dotted red line that kind of crosses the site plan there.
Okay.
And we have them take a look at, right, the flow, not only, as a site as a whole, but in the different directions as well, making sure that we're not increasing flow in any direction off the site. And that's what was done here. So you shouldn't see an increase in flow. Theoretically, there's a decrease, but it's so small you won't notice it.
Right. Okay. Well, obviously we'll look to do some remediation on our part too. And Jessica's a neighbor of ours, and we hope that we can work together to figure it out.
Okay, great.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So does the water eventually hit the driveway, Joe, and go down the driveway towards Dogwood Lane North?
It does, as it does today.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. We have 3 minutes and 9 seconds left on this one. Any other questions on this one? We got everybody from the public. All the commissioners are good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Jessica, anything else you want to add before you try to close the hearing?
No. Thank you for your time and consideration.
You're welcome. So with that said, I would entertain a motion to close. George makes the motion, and can Amy Barsanti make a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Amy Barsanti. All those in favor?
Yes.
Or nothing? There we go. And I think Jamie Zionic said yes too. Okay. Fantastic. That hearing's closed. Man, we'll deliberate this at our next meeting, which is what is it, the 17th maybe?
Next meeting's 2 weeks from tonight, June 24th.
June 24th. We'll deliberate the next meeting, go over it, and then hopefully we get a draft resolution before we get too deep into July. All right. I'm 99% sure we can close this out before August 1st. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. That is the end of the public hearing. The next item we're going to go into is we're going to go back into the general meeting. We have a minute 45 seconds before we time out. How do you guys want to handle this?
I would suggest that we pause here for a moment and use your link to rejoin the meeting.
Okay, so everyone's going to log out and then log back in again. And then who's presenting that one, Fred? Are you or Jeremy?
The folks from Darien Diner were originally here with us prior to dropping off the first time. Yes,
somebody jumped on.
Yep.
There he is. I see a chef's outfit. Sir, what's gonna happen? We're gonna get off in less than a minute. So if you could log off and then log back on in a minute, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
There anything that you have to be in the plan? But exactly what you said is fine. Anything else to add, Jamie or Amy?
Nope. Good. I'm good.
Thanks.
I'm good.
Okay. That's oops. Thank you everyone for being so patient. We're back in action.
This should be Teddy, who runs the diner, and his wife is all.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Good evening.
Eddie, let me just open up the hearing, and then we'll ask you what's going on, okay?
Okay.
All right, hold on, here we go. We're going into the general meeting now, and our first item in the general meeting, our next item is business site plan application number 122B as a boy, also known as PL 25-83, Darien Diner, Bruce Lesser, Properties LLC at 275 Boston Post Road. The proposal is to construct a 20-foot by 22-foot concrete patio at the southwest side of the existing restaurant to accommodate outdoor dining and reconfigure the on-site parking. The 0.94 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the northwest side of Boston Post Road, approximately 200 feet northeast of the intersection of Birch Road, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 13 as Lot 3 in the service business zone. Now, everybody in this room knows exactly where Darien Diner is. It's a nice, beautiful building. And it was renovated back in my day. It was, I think, a Friendly's. And now it's a diner that everybody goes to, and it was beautifully renovated. For the last few years, they have had quote unquote temporary outdoor dining.
Correct.
Started at COVID. Now it looks like our application here is to just make this more permanent, shall we say. The state of Connecticut and the town of Darien encourages outdoor dining. The only thing we kind of sort of worry about, and it's really for you versus for me, is that there's enough parking to accommodate all of your patrons. I think the way the law is written in the state of Connecticut, that's really not an enforcement issue that we can enforce. But it's really just for you, because if you don't have enough parking, you can't have me coming there with my 4 kids for lunch.
Oh, no. Yes.
Right. So, sir, if you want to just explain your plan to us, that would be great. We'll ask any questions we need and see if we can get this taken care of.
Yes. Well, what happened with COVID?
The only thing you have to say first, sir, is please state your name and affiliation.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Theodore Teddy Giapugis. I'm owner of Darien Diner with my wife, Olga Giapugis. And thank you for having us tonight.
You're welcome.
The request of this outdoor patio is because with COVID, with the outdoor dining that was requested in the beginning of COVID, we did a temporary patio and we had to eliminate 10 parking spaces in order to put the patio, and people like the outdoor, and we did that for the following 2 years. And last year we did not do it because we were losing too many parking spaces and we could not accommodate the customers.
Yes.
So we decided not to do it. Well, a lot of our customers complained because they got used to the outdoor dining, not just at our place, but all over. So people now feel like they're in Europe, which is very popular, like in Europe. And that's why we decided to, because they all complained. And that's why we decided to do something permanent and not to lose not to lose any parking spaces. So my engineer came up with the idea of the parking space that we were losing before to put them in an angle so there is enough backup for the parking spaces, and this way we'll not lose any parking. And the parking lot is one way, so by switching over the parking spaces in an angle, it doesn't affect the traffic.
That sounds good to me, as long as you got parking. And I venture to guess that the wall, looking at the pictures, is going to be strong enough if somebody backs their car out. That doesn't
Yes, it's a decorated concrete blocks on both sides, so it looks nice. And inside, we are going to put rebars and fill it in with concrete so it becomes a full concrete wall. That was the other reason when we had the temporary patio, we were very nervous because cars and we're humans and people can make mistakes. And that's why I know our old location, the Darien Diner, they have their steel posts and then they decorate it with wood. But I'm old fashioned. I prefer a concrete wall, nice footings all the way down to make it more safe. It'll be cheap for me to put steel posts in, and the fire marshal recommend that in the beginning. But I like the concrete for more safety.
Can I add something a little bit for your concern about the parking space? What I want to add is the outdoor seating, mostly it's going to be used at night. Like from my experience, all these years that we had, at daytime, not so much because people are hot and this and that. It was more like nighttime. At nighttime, we're not very busy. Like for dinner time, it's not like packed like lunch. So I don't think we're going to have any issues with the parking space.
Okay. That makes sense. I agree with that. I would want to sit outside in July.
No, they don't really. I mean, I'm telling you what usually happens. They sit mostly at nighttime when they come for dinner. They like to sit outside, and we've been like, if we didn't have so many people requested, we wouldn't even bother. And the other thing that we do, because it's not only concern of the parking, it's also how fast we can get the food out there. When we see that it's very busy and we cannot accommodate our clients, we close a section inside. Wow. So we are on top of that, like on top of the service, the parking. We are. I assure you, we're not going to have any issues.
That's great. Good for you. George, any questions on this one?
No, but I'll add to the record here from the site plan that the owners have provided to us. There is a recitation of the parking count calculation, and the bottom line is it says the required parking is 31 spaces, and this will have 44 spaces. So that's right. That is good for us.
Because it's not here, isn't it?
Yeah. No,
I got you. Okay. Gotcha. That sounds great. Jamie, any questions on this one?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I got you. Amy Barsanti?
I'm good. I like the idea of the more permanent structure between the diners and the cars. And I also like the fact that, say, over time, they realize there might be problems with one or two of the particular parking spots. They do have leeway in their count that they could make alterations if they needed to.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. Okay. This is a general meeting item, so there's no real comments from neighbors and whatnot. Jeremy, does ARB have to sign off on this, or can we say yes, subject to ARB? Do they look at these anymore?
From what we understand of the situation, the owners, Teddy and Olga, intend to reuse the furniture that was used in their temporary setup during COVID. So we're looking at the same furniture, and my belief is that the ARB did look at the furniture originally. This application has not gone before the ARB at this point. If the commission thinks it should, that certainly could be a condition of this approval. That's really up to you as a commission.
I think Olga has great taste, and I think Teddy likes to have a good solid wall. I gotta believe you're a Greek and you're not Italian, so you're not building the wall by yourself. I don't.
And when I was young, I did do masonry, so that's why.
There you go. I don't think it needs to go to ARB. George doesn't think it needs to go to ARB either. Anybody think this needs to go to ARB?
So long as they're not proposing, roadway dividers that we have seen in other places.
No.
Those are called Jersey barriers.
Yes.
Teddy's not doing
Yes,
that.
no,
We put humans first and then
no.
profit.
Cosmetically, it's very important for us because it's an image for us. You know, the way we feel about cleanliness, we feel about image. So how the place looks. So it's very important for us.
Jamie, you okay with it?
I'm good, thank you.
And how do you keep the outside so shiny?
We clean it. I bring people to clean it.
Windex.
And I'm not happy. I want it to be cleaner.
Believe it or not, we use Windex. It's funny, but that's the only thing because it's the stainless steel is called a mirror finish, and that is the only way ammonia basically to clean it, and it keeps it shiny. That's it, nothing else.
Excellent. Good to
Excellent.
know.
We love
All right.
it.
Steve,
yes, Fred.
I would just add for the record that this application has also been referred out to the fire marshal's office. Fire Marshal Bush issued a number of comments for the record as part of this request. The applicant responded to a number of comments he had relative to the safety of the wall around the patio, the surface of the patio itself relative to snow melt, as well as access and ADA accessibility around the patio area and into the building. The applicant responded to Mr. Bush's comments and issued an email dated May 21st, noting that all of his comments had been addressed to his satisfaction. I would also note for the record that outdoor dining is a use permitted as of right by state statute. So the commission isn't looking at approving the actual outdoor dining per se. This is an approval of the site plan, an amended site plan that allows for this patio, which of course will be used for outdoor dining, and the reconfiguration of the parking spaces on the site.
Yep. Yeah, it says right on business site plan application number 122B. Okay, great. Anything else we're missing, Fred? And I think you're all set, Teddy and Olga, right?
Thank you.
All right, with that said, can I entertain a motion to approve this submission? Amy just made the motion.
Yep.
And Jamie Zanik just made the second. All in favor? There you go, sir. You got your patio. 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you.
Invited to have a glass of
You're
wine.
Fred and town staff will send you a letter memorializing all the approvals. But I would call your contractor tonight and tell him to put you on the schedule.
Oh,
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And everybody have a wonderful summer. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
All righty. Next item on the agenda is
Che, tu l'hai già detto, io spero che sia stato yeah.
You might want to hang up the phone.
fantastic. You okay there, Amy?
Yes, I'm fine. Okay.
All righty. Next item on the agenda, deliberations only, proposed amendments to Darien zoning regulations, COZR number 2-2025, also known as PL 25-76, put forth by the Darien Town Plan of Conservation, the Town of Darien Zoning Commission. Proposal to amend Darien zoning regulations, specifically define smoke shops, vape shops, and tattoo parlors, and create a new section 1135 of the zoning regulations to specifically prohibit those uses. Other amendments are to make consistent references to the Town Plan of Conservation Development and to specifically revert to the newest version of the state CT deep soil erosion and sediment control documents in section 873 and the Town of Darien Sewer Management Manual in section 880. The full text of proposed amendments are on file and available in the town clerk's office and the planning zoning office for inspection and online at Darien CT viewpointcloud.com as PL 25-76. Thank you. Fred or Jeremy, you want to explain a little bit of the background of this?
Sure. This is a proposal that was put forth by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The public hearing was last Tuesday, June 3rd, and the hearing was closed that night. Looking at my notes, we got a presentation from Joe Canis about the new stormwater manual, which local engineers will need to use when designing projects in Darien. And we talked about a possible long lead time for that, with commission members voicing their opinion that for projects that are now in the pipeline or being designed, it would be unfair for the commission to require them to be totally redrawn. The commission did seem to have some unanimity about the prohibition on vape shops and smoke shops and felt that that should be more of a priority. So in any decision, as you know, the commission can set certain effective dates for any or all of the provisions. And we talked a little bit about that last week. We talked about the more minor proposals put forth on making all the references to town plan of conservation and development the same, and specifically referring to the state document regarding soil erosion and sedimentation control. Steve, you were not at the public hearing last week, so the commission purposely asked that it be put on tonight's agenda to get input and feedback not only from you, but the other commission members who are here tonight that wish to comment again. I know relative to tattoo parlors, there was a little difference of opinion. Some commission members were in favor of the prohibition. George had a little more concern that as tattoos become a little more mainstream, that may not be appropriate. So that's where we stood at the end of last week. We did deliberate a little bit last week, but again, we put it back on the agenda for tonight, which will allow staff to get a little more input and feedback from everyone.
Okay. Let me just go into a tiny bit of background on some of the minor items within this proposal. As a standard course, when the town has done revisions to the zoning documents or the town zoning plan regulations, we clean up other items, which is, I think, exactly what we're doing on this one. Where we're starting with the new section, which is, I think it's called section 1135, and then we're cleaning up all the other stuff. So that's standard practice that we always do. I did see the letter, and I did see some of the stuff with regards to Chief of Police Jerry Marin that said that he would be very pleased if those two items, which are the vape shops and the smoke shops, were never permitted in town. I have heard a little bit of the information on the tattoo parlors. I'm in favor of banning all three of them, but I want to open it up to, if you don't mind, George, you want to go first? We can do two, we can do one, we can do two, we can do three, we can do whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear George?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm happy to have an opportunity to say again what I said at our last meeting. Jeremy just synopsized it nicely, and I thought in the minutes that was also a fine recitation. But let me elaborate a little bit. As I said then, I have an instinctive reaction against proposals to prohibit businesses coming to town. And that's just an overriding thought process I have. However, as I said, the chief's letter concerning smoke shops and vape shops was persuasive to me, and I concur that I would join any amendment to the regulations to prohibit those. As to tattoo parlors, salons, studios, what have you, I do not find any reason to prohibit them by amendment to our regulations. It may be that we won't like whatever specific proposal may come our way at some point, for whatever reason. We don't like where people would park, or we don't like any other aspect of it. But I don't see a reason to prevent them from applying to us. It seems to me, as someone has said, just tattoos are becoming far more common than ever before. They certainly require care and health inspections, but certainly nowadays those requirements are routine, and the state permits these things, and the state regulates them. And so I don't see why they shouldn't at least have the opportunity to apply. I noted my friend Commissioner Zionic comment last time around, adopting the views of our Department of Health director, that it would impose a greater burden on that department to have to regulate such a facility. I don't find that particularly impressive. How many of these things would ever be in this town? I doubt it'll be many. And even so, we've just developed 3 large commercial projects with hundreds of apartment units and all kinds of retail outlets, et cetera, and restaurants. I think our Department of Health can handle that. They could probably handle a tattoo studio or 2 if necessary. And I think I did also just want to say, as a lifelong resident of this town, that I don't like being elitist about something like this. I don't have a concern that we're suddenly going to bring in gangs and biker groups and that sort of thing that are going to be disruptive or create crime and that sort of thing. I think tattoo artists are indeed that. It is an art form. I think many of us would be surprised as to who we know that has tattoos, discreet or otherwise. Including in my family.
My daughters go.
There you go. They happen, and it's not such a bad thing. So, as I say, I would not preclude them, the tattoo artists, from at least making an application to us and see how it goes from there. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. Amy Barcenta, you want to make any comments that you might have?
Sorry about that, just unmuting myself. Yes, I wholeheartedly in agreement with the comments that were provided in the last hearing with regards to the smoke and vape shops. I definitely think there was a very compelling presentation that was made. That was my inclination. Everybody has an opinion that they have before they get a set of facts or a presentation, and that just confirmed my thoughts. I am in the camp, so I'm in total agreement with those. With regards to the tattoos, my baseline thought process was that they're not appropriate for Darien. And I think, the comments that George has made, I can appreciate not trying to dissuade business owners to make applications. But I also, given all things being equal, I'm going to lean into what the health director said, that they think it would be a challenge to oversee this in an appropriate way. So I'm leaning towards not doing that, not agreeing with the regulation change that as proposed.
Hold on, I think Steve's got some technical difficulties here. Fred left the room, which means Steve is probably jumping off and jumping on again. So we'll give him a second here.
Hello, can anyone hear us?
Yep, we got you, George.
All right, we're back. I don't know what happened for Steve.
He blew it.
Steve has a problem with his machine, but Amy was just saying at this point you thought that I assume you're sticking with your original provision, your original thinking, but we didn't get that part.
Oh, yes. I am in favor of keeping the proposed regulation change. I don't know where you lost me.
That was about it, I think.
That's about it. We were listening to you. You started to say about the health department. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yep.
Jamie, Zionic, any comments here?
Yes, I think I asked the question at the last meeting about how we came to the 20% of a retail establishment. And I know Adam had some comments about that too, that we were discussing that 20% might be too large of a percentage of a retail establishment when you think about how that might be configured. And we had some discussion about that, and I still have that concern.
Yes.
20% mean? What does that mean?
Right, Steve, the definition of smoke shop or vape shop made a reference to the amount of your, I think it was, let me get the, right in here, the amount of the retail area dedicated to the sale of tobacco and retail related products, and both for vape shop and smoke shop. And both Adam and Jamie mentioned last week, 20% might be a little high, maybe 10%. I think 10% was mentioned, stop me if I'm wrong, would be a more appropriate number, because even at 20%, you could still be selling quite a bit of the products.
Yeah,
Could I suggest
the minutes do say 10% may be more appropriate. Okay.
Could I think of maybe another way? I mean, I don't know if this is possible. I thought I was reading some other ordinances from other communities today, and some they completely banned smoke shops and vape shops, and then they listed which types of businesses could sell, say, tobacco and at what percentage, like a gas station. So I think that's maybe another way of looking at it too.
Okay, we'll start looking at suggested ways to address those comments.
Okay. With regards to, do you have any opinion, Jamie, on tattoo parlors?
Following what the recommendation was from the health department, I'm in favor of leaving them on our list to as written. So
Okay.
I'm not in favor of, I'm in favor of banning them, not to,
So you want to keep the proposal the way it is?
Yes.
Okay. Amy Barsanti wants to keep the proposal the way it is. Jamie wants to keep it the way it is. Do we remember where Fred and Adam came out on this?
You mean Mike Netter?
Mike and Adam came out on this?
Mike Netter, I'm going to have to watch the video again on that, and or reach out to Mike directly between now and the next meeting.
Okay.
On the tattoo question, none spoke up after I did. So
yeah, I don't think so. So
they were otherwise in favor of the amendment.
Okay, so you're the only one that's against it. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm listening to you. I mean, you're 100% right. My daughter has a tattoo. There's two of them.
Yeah,
Yeah. The only thing we're not closing this tonight, but if we're going to direct staff to make up to make up a resolution, I think is what we're going to do at the end of this, and then approve it next go around. But it's one of the big things. There's a shopping center that's near my house, which is on the base of Camp Avenue, and they have a vape shop there and a tattoo parlor, and the signage is, you could see it from probably the space shuttle. It's just going to on my email. Just hit it. Yeah, so here. But with regards to that, with that said, we have signage regulations that affect these things too, that change it. But
Progress.
okay. I know we have two. Oh shit.
I'll turn this one on.
there we go. Much better. Thank you, George.
Okay, good. So here's this one.
Oh, I also have to do the volume. Hang on.
Yeah. So I think at this point we have at least three commissioners or four commissioners want to keep the proposal in place, and maybe Fred, I'm not, what are you going and George would like to strike tattoo parlors from the document. And I don't really, do we remember where Adam was?
He did not speak up either, so he would be assumed to be negative. I mean, he'd be in favor of the amendment.
Place. Okay. So how about if we do this? How about if we draft the resolution to keep tattoo parlors on the quote unquote ban list, and we can pick it up next time before we vote on it? Okay. Because it's easier to take it out than it is to put it back in.
Right. Staff will get started in on that and looking at some tweaked wording on the percent of the area. Jamie, if you have a suggestion, be happy to take a look at it as we work for a possible draft ready for the 24th.
Yeah,
There was also the proposal from the gentleman who presented about it being a percentage of sales rather than dedicated area.
That's a good idea, Amy. I think your word compelling about that presentation. He was very knowledgeable.
Yep.
Okay. I need to see that presentation. Sounds great. So Jamie, I think the homework for you is if there's something that you did read today,
Yep.
and can forward those snippets or those pieces onto staff, that would be great.
I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I always like not reinventing the wheel. If somebody else has a good best practice, that's what they call them, best practices. Okay, great. So staff's going to do what they're going to do, and we'll look at the document next weekend. All right, next item on the agenda: proposed amendment. And how many minutes we got left? Proposed amendments to zoning regulations COZR number 1, 2025, put forth by Old Kings Highway North, number 40104 LLC, and Old Kings Highway North number 8 LLC, also known as PL 25-79. Proposal to amend Section 766 of the Darien zoning regulations to increase the maximum floor area of dwelling units within the design business DBZ zone from 1,000 square feet to 1,250 square feet, and to allow developments on smaller lots less than 20,000 square feet within the DB zone to have up to 8 two-bedroom units with no single-bedroom units. Proposal to amend Section 766 of the regulations to reduce the rear yard setback, building setback from developments, complying with the inclusionary zoning regulations, which is Section 580, from 25 feet to 10 feet, where certain findings may be made by the commission. Proposal to amend Section 906 of the regulations to reduce the parking setbacks for developments from 10 feet to 0 feet, where certain findings are made by the commission. Proposal to amend Section 945 of the regulations to reduce or eliminate preliminary landscaping requirements where certain conditions and findings are made by the commission. This application was presented by Wiley Gleason. There is obviously a site that they're looking at, which is at 104 and 108 Old Kings Highway North. The developer is a gentleman named Sean Shea, who hired Wiley Gleason. In my opinion, Old Kings Highway North is kind of a dead office street. There's a hodgepodge there now, and we have to be able to encourage development on that street. This applicant in particular, I know for part of the fact that he's met with Jeremy and Fred numerous times on going over this application. It started out as a lot bigger building. With parking outside, they did go in front of the Environmental Protection Commission, changed it again there. They're going to clean out the river that's there, which is part of the application, not part of the zone change. But in my opinion, we have to do something with the street to make it more attractive to put in an investment in there and new developments. So I'm a big favor of doing these changes to our proposed amendments to the zoning regulations. I think the way that the public notice here, the legal notice was written, there's a lot of the commission has a lot of leeway where certain findings have to be made by the commission on any of these things to be acceptable, which is a little bit like our special permit use. So at the end of the day, I'm kind of okay with it. The thing that we do also have to be cognizant of is at one point in time, anybody could put an 830G project on any site in town at all. And if that's the case, because at one point in time they were talking about this on this street, a lot of times we try to make these things friendly 830Gs, but if they can still do it, cannot quote as of right, or we make the zoning as flexible so you can do it based upon our regulations. I think that's better than someone trying to pigeonhole an 830G in the site where it really doesn't make it. So I think I'm a big fan of it. I know I'm a big fan of it. I'm going to ask Amy Barsanti to comment first, if you don't mind, Amy, on this
Sure.
application.
Sure.
Yeah, some observations.
I went and looked at the zoning maps because, I was the one that made the concern about wanting to understand where making this trifecta of change of setbacks and parking and no landscaping zone, how that would potentially, what properties would be at play in the future. And so I spent some time looking at the DB zones and where they abut residential, which is my biggest concern is a homeowner suddenly having an adjacent property doing something that's in my mind egregious and an imposition to them. So after reviewing it, the reality is most of the areas that abut residential are already programmed with condos. If you look at like Darien Close and Sedgwick Village, the Royal, the property we're looking at now, and then the things that are abut Stone Road, which are already condos. So most of them are already programmed. And so my concern is way lower and alleviated than it was in my last remarks. So in this particular case, I think I'm okay making the change now.
Great, thanks for that research, Amy. And a lot of times we do that as a matter of course when we did the other ones. There's always certain things, and it sounds like we did it versus the applicant doing it.
Yeah.
Amy, you want to go next?
Yes, I mean, I had some of the same concerns as Amy and Mike made the same, stated the same concerns. I thought we were going to receive a list of the properties, but I guess that wasn't the intent. But my other concern was that it doesn't just impact residential development. I think it could also adversely impact commercial development with having, say, like trash receptacles right up to the property line and no landscape buffer.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just looking at the clock. We have like a minute 30 left.
Oh, okay.
So we might need to reboot again.
That was really it from my statement that I do, or for my comments. I just feel that it could impact commercial uses as neighboring properties that are commercial as well.
Okay.
Should we take a pause here and as staff, we did do some further research on this as well, so I'd like to report on that as well. But if we want to take a pause here, we can
Sounds good.
close this down and then rejoin with the link you have.
Thank you.
Thanks. The commercial break is now over. Thank you. TV7, we're back.
Raise money, so we're going to afford Zoom.
I think Jamie spoke, Amy spoke. Want to switch to Fred first, and then we'll go to George Riley. If that's okay.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, Fred, tell us about your research.
Yeah, sure. So, based on the commission's previous deliberations on the 3rd, we did take a closer look at this. Relative to the lots, the parcels that potentially would be or could be affected as part of this zoning regulation amendment. Let me first start off by saying that the DB zone, the design business zone, there's 3 separate DB zones in the town, including, of course, the area of the proposed development on Old Kings Highway North. Then there's another DB zone that spans the post road from Sedgwick Avenue to the Birch Road or to Birch Road. There's a second area which includes the Hale Lane condominiums and Board of Education property, which was the previous Darien Library. And then another area that abuts Squab Lane and Leroy Avenue,
Yep.
which is the area of Clocks
Hill
Homes.
Yep.
So there are a number of considerations relative to these proposed amendments. As Amy mentioned, parking setbacks, as well as the perimeter landscaping. These zoning changes would affect all properties within the DB zone for these, for the setbacks for both the landscaping and the parking. However, the applicant did note during the public hearing that, of course, the commission, at its discretion, at its special permit regulations, allow the commission to make a determination as to whether where those reductions are taken are not impacting residential properties to the point where the commission would feel that approving the project would be a detriment to those residential properties.
So you're basically saying that this is not as of right.
Correct. It is not as of right.
Right. There's discretion there, which George can speak to himself later. Sometimes likes and sometimes doesn't like.
Yeah. As far as the other changes go relative to the floor area, the increase from 1,000 feet to 1,250 feet for the residential units, the rear yard building setback of 10 feet, as well as the number of residential units going from 6 to 8 units on lots less than 20,000 square feet and up to 12 units versus 7 units, which is the current regulation on sites over 20,000 square feet. So we looked at the properties in the DB zone that are 20,000 or less, focusing on the parcels in the DB zone that span the post road from Sedgwick Avenue to Birch. There's about 62 parcels within that span. About 32 of those properties, 32 to 35 of those properties are 20,000 square feet or less. So roughly half of those properties along the post road. We didn't really look at the parcels at the Hale Lane condominium parcels and Board of Education parcels, as well as the land that abuts Squab Lane and Leroy Avenue, as far as Clocks Homes. We looked at those areas as being unlikely to change in the near term, probably in the next 10 to 20 years. So, focus the effort on looking at those 62 lots along the post road. But about half of those would potentially be subject to these changes in the number of units.
Okay. with that said, and I'm going to fast forward a tiny bit, just because it's coming down the pipe anyway. There's a law that was passed by the House and I think it's called the House and the Senate up in Hartford, which converts all commercial to residential as of right. That's on the governor's desk to propose. So the things that we're talking about in this DBZ zone, I gotta believe, Fred, if we don't do something and the state does what the state's gonna do, it's what we're doing is a moot point anyway. Isn't that correct?
To a large extent, that's correct. The bill hasn't been passed, of course. It's
No, it
sitting
hasn't been signed.
Right.
It hasn't-
Right,
The
right.
bill has not been signed by the governor.
Right.
But you're correct that a portion of that bill does allow for as of right conversion of commercial properties to residential properties.
So with that said, I don't know why, and I'm not taking credit for it, but it's such imagination. We seem to be ahead of the curve all the time. You know, so this is our own idea that we're putting forth and trying to tweak, and the state's going to do it regardless. And they might not do it this year, but I bet you nickel that it's going to come back next year. And if it doesn't go next year, it's going to go back the next year after that. So, me personally, and you, George, has to speak too. Me personally, I would rather be in front of it. I just disappeared.
I've got you.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, you're still good.
I'm still good. Oh, I'm off on my screen. Anyway, I would like to be in front of it versus being behind it. But thank you, Fred, for that research. That's definitely helpful. With that said, I'd like to turn over to George to see your opinion on this.
The only concern I have expressed and will stand by is the trucks backing up into Old Kings Highway South. It is at a point in the middle of an S curve, two curves, and I don't like the line of sight ultimately, and I don't like backing into that. However, I do not believe that should stop this project. I would not make my vote negative on that basis. I will just comment that just the other day, I was going from say Old King South toward the shopping center, and there were cars lined up all the way, stopped trying to get out of Old King South, take a left or right. It was backed up all the way into those two curves. So it's a problematic section of road, I believe. And there will be moving trucks, fire trucks, there will be refuse trucks, whatever else. So I just put that out there on the record at this point, but I would not vote no on that account. The only other comment I wanted to pick up on was I think it was Commissioner Zionic, maybe Commissioner Barsanti, maybe both, who have commented in the past that there might be a better way of referring to the impact on neighboring properties than saying nearby. And I think
Oh, hold on, George. Hold on.
There you go.
Okay, so as I was saying, I have a basic belief in allowing anything. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to go that far back.
If I can interrupt 1 second, this with regards to this we're doing right now, this is the zone change. Some of the items we talk about relative to the fire truck is really the site plan stuff.
Yeah,
Okay,
the site
but
plan's coming back to us.
There's language, I think, in the proposed amendment that
Yes, the nearby.
permits,
Yes,
permits impact to nearby properties.
Yes.
And I was just quoting Commissioners Zionic and Barsanti. I think they are the ones who have commented in the past that maybe we should use the 100-foot boundary, those who are getting notice of any zoning application as the definition of the people who may be impacted and should be considered in any such change as provided in this amendment. I don't like the word nearby. It just strikes me as vague and picking a fight. So I would suggest that, and I don't want to take credit for something that I don't know, it was Amy or Jamie who had suggested that.
Well, how about if we do this? How about if we moved this forward and that tweaking that we talked about?
Yeah.
Because I think Wilder said, you can easily change this word, that word.
Yeah.
To make it better.
Yeah, that's fine.
We can do that on draft. Because I think that was one of your suggestions, Amy, and that's where George said he didn't like that word. But if we're all in agreement in the big picture that we're going to pass this amendment, then that's great. And then if we have to tweak the wording at the end, we can easily do that.
Good.
Okay,
The
George is
suggestion
nodding,
I
saying
made
yes.
was that it should.
You're muted, Jamie. Say that again.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
You're still muted.
No, she's good. You're good. You're good. You're good.
We can't hear you because his speaker's off. You're not muted.
Oh, my speaker.
Your speaker's off.
Oh.
Hold on. There you go. That's it right there. That X one. Or one of those. There you go.
There we go.
Okay, Amy, Jamie, go ahead.
The point I made was about no adverse impact on any nearby residential use is how it reads right now. But I'm not sure why it should just be residential use. It should be, any we're planning to change nearby, I think, but also property or some other. I don't know why it would matter that it's whether
Just
it's residential or commercial.
Yep, agreed.
I agree with that.
Yep.
No, I mean, in this particular application, and we're not on the application, that the nearby use it's affecting is the tennis courts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't really think it's going to.
And Trader Joe's.
Yeah, it's not going to negatively affect that one. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement on that, right?
Yep.
So, Fred and Jeremy, if you could move that amendment forward, and draft it up for our next meeting to review, that would be great. And we
Yes.
have to do some tweaking of the wording. We can do it at subsequent review of the draft. And obviously we can do the draft, first draft and second draft if we need to. Right?
Great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Moving on. We're now I don't mean to be off camera by any stretch of imagination. But my computer is having a heart attack right now. I don't know why.
I don't know.
mean,
Does this
is my
camera
office.
work? I don't know if it
His
does.
camera doesn't work.
Oh,
But
no.
everybody can hear me, right?
Yes.
All right, good. That's all that matters. All right, so moving along, the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have minutes from May 27th and May 3rd. Let's start with May 27th on that one. Any questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one? The first item on this agenda was the presentation of the 104 and 108 thing we just talked about with the various items. And then we also had a general meeting where we did deliberations on Pear Tree Point and some minutes approvals. I didn't really say anything and jumped off the page on this one.
I'll move approval.
We have a motion on the table from George, motion to approve as submitted. Amy makes the second. All in favor?
Yeah.
We got
Oh,
George and I vote yes.
yeah.
Yes.
4-0.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the June 3rd meeting. Barsanti and Zionic and Riley were there. I'm allowed to approve this, but I was not at the meeting. Any questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on these sets of minutes? The first was a proposal from the commission on the vape shops and smoke shop and tattoo parlors. We went over that again tonight. The general meeting items were the ADU at West Avenue. And then I think we did deliberations and approval of a resolution, which was the Pear Tree Point, which that's a resolution, which we can't change that. And what else do we have? Deliberations on, I guess that was the first night of deliberations on the 104, 108 application. Looking for any questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one?
No. Good.
George is making a motion to approve as submitted. Looking for a second. Amy makes a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes pass.
Got it.
Fantastic. All right. Next item on the agenda is chairman's report. I just want to start out with the chairman's report is I alluded to it a minute ago. There's a bill that was passed up in Hartford that was called HB 5002. Some people call it 5002. The first selectman on Monday morning, probably about 7:30, submitted a draft of a letter that was eventually completed. And I want to thank personally Fred Donite for taking the lead on that. I think he walked in Monday morning thinking it was having a great day, and he ended up helping draft a letter and reviewing a letter and getting it signed. That's the first piece of it. The meat of it is our first selectman drafted a letter asking the Governor Lamont to veto HB 5002. It's the omnibus, and I think Fred can maybe speak to it more eloquent than I. That was passed by the House and the Senate. The first selectman, as part of his work, asked to get co-signatories to the letter that he drafted, and Fred and Jeremy reviewed. I did see it, an early draft of it too, but I think that the final draft was definitely better and helped out by Fred. As a little bit of background, New Canaan sent a similar letter to the governor asking him to veto it. Wilton, I think, was the first one that sent the letter to the governor asking to veto HB 5002. I think there's some other towns, maybe Weston. I don't know what Ridgefield did. But it's the letter basically states, and a lot of it's public record. It's posted someplace, online. And there was also a TV 79 asked the first selectman question that came out yesterday. It came out Monday. The bill, and we've talked about it a little bit in some of our meetings, it really doesn't work for the town of Darien, because that has the one, and I keep referencing, it's 1,967 additional units are in the fair share bill that are supposed to be built in the town of Darien. The thing that I think is reflective of our town's thinking is the letter was written by the first selectman, and it was co-signed by 57 elected officials in the town of Darien, which was all of the selectmen co-signed it. All of the planning zoning commission, or 6 people signed it. The chairman of the architecture review board signed it. The chairman of the zoning board of appeals signed it. The chairman of the environmental protection commission signed it, and the chairman of the sewer commission signed it, along with some people on board of education and a bunch of RTM members too. But we work really hard in Darien making our zoning as flexible and local control as we can. But I think we just have to make sure that we do what the state wants us to do in the grand scheme, which is create more housing to help the housing crisis in town. But I think we want to have local control on where it's going to be. So with that said, that's my real report, and it's really also a big thanks to Jeremy and Fred and Jeremy for all their help on this stuff. I think that's really it for me. Next item would be any questions for me on that prior to this? We're good?
No, agreed. Good letters. Well done, guys.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. I did draft another letter personally, but that got put in the recycling bin. Maybe it comes out another day, but it was decided that it was not needed. Director's report. Jeremy, anything you want to add, sir?
Nothing really to add. We're off next week, June 17th. Then next meeting after that is June 24th. And then we take the first week of July off and meet again July 8th. So the agendas are still in flux as people get moved around. And even a few hours ago, we were still moving people around. So, but nothing eventful. The 104, 108 Old Kings Highway application, that public hearing was continued to July 8th. So that will be one you'll see in early July. So
I'm signed up to be out of town on June 24th.
Okay.
So if you could put me down as an absent.
And I'm not sure if I'll make July 8th.
Okay.
I think maybe Adam said he had a problem with June 24. Not sure.
We'll check, make sure we have quorums for all these meetings, but thank you for letting me know. Excellent.
Okay, thank you. Upcoming, we talk about any other business, gentlemen?
In progress.
Any other business?
No.
Oh,
No, move we adjourn.
I wish I should. Hold on. Okay, with that said.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Anybody in favor? Aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.